How many of you have seen violence in a video game? And how many of you have ever killed a man? Just like a lot of you, I'm a huge fan of playing violent video games such as GTA 5 as it boosts my adrenaline and it allows me to experience the curiosity of a criminal's lifestyle. But this has never made me, and I assume you, rob a bank at gunpoint or attack an innocent person for no reason. If violent video games influence people to commit violent acts, then why did violence in children's cartoons like Tom and Jerry that existed before the proliferation of mass media not have the same effect? This is why we need to come together to put a stop to the game industry taking all the blame, before the call for its restrictive regulations is acted on by the Games Rating Authority. Over the years, desensitization to violence has caused the audience to become more used to seeing an increased amount, which has become a social norm. This is being used by a few people as the cause for the increase in violence of children, such as increase in knife crime, as many children are believed to be more vulnerable to the harmful effects of violence in media. But in reality, there is as much evidence linking George Bush to 9/11 than there is that video games cause violence. Crime rates published in 2019 by the Office of National Statistics show that in 1995 there were 64 cases of violent crimes committed per 1,000 adults. This dropped to just 13 incidents per 1,000 adults in 2017 over England and Wales. However, the focus of violence in the news and on social media dramatically increased over this period, showing a negative correlation between the amount of crimes committed and the amount of violence in the media. It is not new for video games to take the blame for these atrocities. For Rek Bednar, an innocent 14-year-old boy who was sadistically murdered by 19-year-old Lewis Danes in 2014, other media outlets, such as newspapers, chose to blame the easy scapegoat, which in this case were the violent video games the boys had been playing. However, I believe that other external factors are the real reason behind the brutal murder of Rek Bednar. Lewis Danes had been abandoned by his mother at a young age, forcing him into the care of local authorities. This caused him to feel rejected and isolated. With the murder thought to be sexually motivated, it is unfair to blame online games, because even if this platform wasn't available to him, it's very likely he would have used other platforms, such as social media, to groom his victims. Even though violent crimes have been decreasing, other media outlets such as newspapers and TV news are feeding off the destruction of the video games industry for their own benefit to sell stories. Newspapers are constantly blowing stories out of proportion and over-reporting stories such as knife crimes to make them seem more common than they actually are. With newspapers having no restrictions on age, children are being exposed to graphic content which they would be restricted from seeing in video games. As a gamer myself, I know that for a lot of people, violence in video games allows you to take your anger out in a way that doesn't affect people in the real world. This is the reason why there's been a decrease in the amount of violent crimes committed over the years, even though violence in video games has been increasing. Therefore, violent video games are causing people to become less violent.